Special guest today, y'all. I am so pumped up to introduce Josh Niblett. Josh, how you doing, sir?
I'm good, man. It's good to see you, brother. Appreciate you having me.
Yes, sir. Thanks so much. Feel like I know you. I've been listening to your podcast since we got this organized, and that's been really great for me. I love the message that you present to us. Chasing best.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I love it. So going 1-0 every day, right?
Yep, that's right.
1-0 every day. I love your thought process. Now, everyone that's watching this that is a subscriber to our channel, y'all know that I'm all about the swag and the look and the feel. But like, I got just plain Jane shoes on. My man showed up in the J's with the Nike with the hat. He's looking amazing. So I'm so pumped up for so many reasons about this podcast today, but like, this is my guy. Like when I get your age, I want to be on your level still. Like that's what I'm trying to achieve. So,
look, I told you earlier, like, sometimes perception's not everything, but sometimes perception's all you got. So I'm comfortable in my own skin, and I love wearing J's, and I love wearing flat bill hats, and people say, hey, when you get 51 years old, you probably need to change your style, but I'm not. That's probably when I'm going to even add more to it, So, but yeah, look, man, God's been awesome to me, and, every day I wake up, I just try to glorify him, and to him be the glory. And, the Bible tells us that, we get to experience things in life for such a time as this. And so, you and I having this opportunity to talk today is special to me also. So I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. This is everything to me, y'all. This is really special. As I learned more about you, Coach, just by listening to your podcast and just hearing what you believe in and what your standard is and what your expectations are and just your thought process, I just kept getting more and more excited. Obviously, I really didn't know that was you when I was watching on TV of Hoover winning the championships back in the day, and I was just seeing all that. I really didn't know you as a man or as a coach then, but I got excited about this opportunity when I found out that you are a 7-time state champion, right?
Yes, sir.
So I've got the record for you, 255 and 59. Am I right there?
Yes, sir.
Overall, 236 and 58 in Alabama. So impressive. 14-1 your first year with Gainesville. And there's the Red Elephants were a nemesis of mine in high school. I went to Stevens County, and back then Stevens was 3A and Gainesville was 3A back then as well. So I played in your territory. We played there twice, beat y'all once, and y'all beat us once. So that's a very intimidating stadium to play in on Friday night.
Well, City Park, man. It's coming from Alabama, playing in a lot of different places, and the venue we had at Hoover was pretty much a minor league baseball stadium where they hold the SEC baseball championships. They convert it to a football field, and when it's packed now, it's an unbelievable atmosphere. But when I first got into coaching, I was at Aniana High School, and we had a Gilbreth Stadium when that thing was packed, but it was more about community. And I think that's the neatest thing, in Gainesville is, at City Park, it's a family coming together, almost like it's, Thanksgiving, where everybody comes together and gets to enjoy each other. That's what we do on Friday nights. And, everybody in the community is highly supportive of, high school football, and they love high school football. And for some of them, that's their week. I mean, that's what gets them through the week. And so, I guess we've played 3 games at home. I mean, they've all been standing room only. And so, at our place, it doesn't matter who we're playing. I mean, our people are going to come out and want to be a part of it because that's what it's about.
I believe Gainesville is the 3rd winningest school in the state of Georgia.
Yep.
I believe. So when you hear Gainesville High School, you just definitely know that if you're playing Gainesville or you hear that name, they're a good football team. Whatever season they're going through, you just know you're playing Gainesville, they're going to give you a fight. And so it's been impressive to see you come in first year. And tell us a little bit about last year. You went undefeated in the regular season and playoffs. Just tell us about your first year as a coach
I think the biggest thing is coming in and, Adam Lindsay, our athletic director's, sitting here to my right. And, I just want to, tell you, the credit goes to the leadership that he has of, having a vision of, hey, this is where, we think our program needs to go. And, when him and I first talked, I mean, if you'd have told me 2.5 years ago that I was going to retire from the state of Alabama and I was going to be coaching in Georgia, I probably would have told you you're crazy, just because my dad coached in, Alabama besides 1 year in Georgia, all of his 30-something years. And, my brother was in Alabama. My family was in Alabama. Mom and dad live in Montgomery. My son was a junior, so about to go into his junior year. And so, you have all those different variables, but, the one variable is when God's in control, and you put your faith and trust in him, then, you're going to be where you're supposed to be. And so, got the opportunity when I came here. I think the biggest thing is trying to get everybody to understand, hey, look, this is going to be our standard. This is kind of the way we're going to do it, because there were some things probably that were a little bit different. But there's an expectation. And so nobody's ever going to put any more expectations on me than I'm going to put on myself, and then more than I'm going to put on our players. And so when I first got here, January, February, and March, we didn't talk about football. It was all about our culture, how we're going to build our culture, hold each other accountable. We weren't going to talk about having rules, because I feel like when you have rules, people look to break them. So we talked about standards, because then people look to uphold standards. And so once we kind of got that laid out, number one was being a good person. We're going to be a good person, and we're going to be a person a whole lot longer. We're going to be a football player in life. Number two is being a good student. If I want to get anywhere in life, then, I've got to be educated about what I'm trying to do. If I want to go play college football, then I've got to make sure that academically I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Number three is being a great athlete. So how can I get faster, bigger, and stronger? How can my work ethic, energy level, my effort level, have a high impact as far as our execution goes? And then, being a good football player. And I think in April we started talking about football. And so I think by us putting the priorities right, our kids understood that. We went into spring, we actually went through spring and, you get 10 days of practice in a jamboree, and we played South Gwinnett, and, we go over there and end up beating them. But we had a really good spring. Guys had to learn how to practice, had to learn the expectations at practice. This is the way we go from this period to that period. It's a lot of different variables there that they weren't used to. We go through the summer, play some 7-on-7s. The new thing for me was padded camps. I'd never been involved in, being able to go somewhere and go up against other opponents in helmets and shells. And so that was a big deal for us, a big deal for me. And I think that helped us. And then we didn't play particularly well early, but I thought we played well enough that we were learning, like, hey, this is how we want to play. We want our identity to be this. And by the time we get to week 7, Baxter, our quarterback, began to really, really get a grasp of our offense and what we were doing. I thought we were playing at a high level on defense. And then, we were doing some good things on special teams. And before you know it, here we are winning a region championship, and then we're 10-0. And then, we go through the first 4 rounds and win. And then, we play Langston Hughes in the state championship game, and, they beat us 35-28. And so, we had some opportunities there. So going into the offseason, I tell people all the time, if you put your index finger and your thumb about an inch apart, most people would say in our program we were that close. But, for us in our building, we were that far away. And so, I think that's the way we look at our day-to-day of being 1-0 is, when we came back in January, hey, here's what we got to do. This is what we do well. This is what we don't do well. All right. But go back to culture. Like, you don't just go and just carry on football and talk about football. We got to go back now because it's a different group. And, so then January, February, March, you're learning how to be a great person, be a great athlete, and a great student. And when April rolls around, we try to, hey, now let's add to football what we did last year. Let's see what we can add to do for this year. And so right now at this point in time, we're 5-0, and, we're, looking forward to having the opportunity to get back on the field after this bye week this week. But, I've been blessed tremendously. To God be the glory. I've got great staff, got great players, and we got great support. As you see from Mr. Brad Akins today, it's instrumental that the leadership trickles from the top down by leading by example and by setting the foundation. So very similar. I see the correlation of how our dealership is ran here by Brad setting the tone early, and then just backing it up by every day sticking to that is really big. But it's very impressive to me that you've been able to get a grasp so early with being not a new coach, but a new coach at a new school, getting that culture established early. A lot of times you see new coaches that, they struggle a little bit early season the first year, but to have a great first season is a really good testament to the foundation there. Well, kind of going back to Brad, I think the big thing is when you're a leader, you got to have a different vision. I think it's your job to have the vision. Everyone that works within what you're doing that helps you carry that vision out must have a focus. And then it's your job to keep them focused. And sometimes you got to get people out of their comfort zone a little bit. Sometimes you got to challenge people a little bit. Sometimes you got to encourage them. Sometimes you got to push them. And so I think the vision that you have that cultivates into that focus that everybody must have on a day-to-day basis, it's your job to make sure that. And you can tell just when you walk in to this organization that everybody's driven, everybody knows their lane, everybody understands what's got to be done today, and you can tell everybody's trying to get better. And it's not about me trying to get better, but it's kind of like our deal. It's a we over me concept. And now everybody, because if you do your job individually and have great performance, then production as far as the whole team allows us to be at the level we want to be at. And so I think that's highly important with what we do within our program, because we realize that it's about a standard and it's about a process. There's a standard that when you walk in our building, that as you walk up the steps and you're coming to that third level, but it's not only like football, but it's in all of our sports. It's in our hallways. Like, we want the standard to be at a high level. And high level standards not for everybody, but I think it's your job as the leader to make sure everybody understands what that standard is. We're not going to drop it, we're not going to lower it. We're going to make sure we keep raising it every day. And then within the process, we have 3 levels within our process. Number 1's the people. We got to have the people. Number 2's the purpose, and number 3's passion. You're going to deal with people every day. If you can't communicate with people and have a relationship and shared experience with people, you're not going to make it very far, and you're going to die a lonely person. And so for us, it's about purpose. We don't try to come every day with a plan, because plans change, but purpose needs to be able to stay the same, which is we're driven for each other. We got each other's back. We got each other's six. And so we're going to show up every day and give great energy. That doesn't mean I'm going to show up every day and feel like I'm on top of the world. There may be days I show up where I feel like the world's on top of me. And then the passion. Why do you do it? I think when you understand your why, then I think every day you wake up, even if you feel good or bad, you don't lose your joy. You may lose a little happiness, but you understand the standard in which you want to live at and why you're doing that.
Yes, sir. So it's not about being necessarily being motivated, but just having the discipline of, this is what I am here to do. I'm going to do it no matter how I feel. Is a huge part of that. Well,
sure. It's like self-control. That was a big word for our program last week, was about control, because I felt like we were having a few penalties that, it was more off of us having self-control. We want to play with emotion, but we don't want to be emotional. Like, when you play with emotion, then that means you have an impact on everybody. When you're emotional, that means you're a distraction to everybody. And so then it becomes about you, and so within our program, we talked about self-control, but the key to self-control is self-awareness. If you know where you are and you're comfortable in your own skin, and you know where you're going to, and you know what you're not, I think that's the biggest thing is I think a lot of people don't understand, hey, like, this is what I'm not, like, this is what I am. All right. And then who you are as a person is a whole lot more important than what you do and what you have. And so I think that's something that we try to do as a staff, and our players are trying to do to each other, and it's a learning process, and it's a teachable moment, and that's why I coach, and that's what I love to do.
That's great. And it's got to be very looking forward to the future for you, of knowing that once you get the program established for several years now, once you get those guys that were freshmen that now become seniors, they're going to be already so bought in that they're going to help you with the younger guys just to keep that cycle rolling.
Well, there's 3 levels in our program we talk about that, we always talk about. Every day you wake up, you have an opportunity to make an impression, and you don't even have to talk to anybody to make an impression. Then number 2 is being an influence. There, I may have to get a little bit closer, may have to kind of see what's going on, and then impact. Impact, I got to truly be highly involved. And I always say, when you go into a program, the first year group, you're going to make an impression on them. The problem is when you make an impression, that indention kind of goes away a little bit if they don't continue to nurture. So if your seniors leave, you'll have some that'll kind of go back to maybe not making good choices or not doing the right, not really understanding why the standard was the standard. The second year guys that usually come back, you'll have an influence on them, and it usually will help, and it'll get them through to a point where when they're in college, they'll be able to revert back to, hey, now I know why the standard was the standard. But then once they get out of school, they become their own person. Do they still understand the standard? And then the third group that comes through is the group that you're going to make an impact on. And I think that's the group that you've had an opportunity to be with them for 3 years. They've seen every way possible that the standard is the standard. And then all of a sudden they can take it and use it for the rest of their life. So I'm not saying that, first year groups don't get it, but a lot of times you just only get to make an impression. I think we all got to wake up every day looking to make an impact no matter how long we have with people.
You're right about that. I was telling someone the other day about when I was a child that my grandfathers and my dad were very blunt and stern with me about almost everything, and some things would hurt, and I really wouldn't understand why they were saying or doing some of the things towards me. But then I look back at it now, I'm like, man, it was the standard. It was the family. It was the Nsheppard standard. They were saying, son, I'm old school. This is how I'm teaching you this. It's my old school ways, but it's the standard. You're not going to deviate from that standard. So I look back at that, and I appreciate that, and the impact that you've got to have. Or I guess one of the most meaningful things that to use obviously got to be the impact that you get to have on young men, right?
No doubt. Well, I think a lot of times the problem is it's not the children, it's us, because I think sometimes we, it's hard to say, but it's almost like we take care of them too much. We don't let them grow up. We don't let them try to figure out problems. We don't let them try to figure out, hey, I'm in this situation. How am I, because when you always give them the answer, then they don't have to learn. I mean, if we'd have went through school and you got to go in math class and the teacher just gave you the answers, then you wouldn't want to learn any math. You'd be like, I don't want to learn math. Just give me the answers. Well, the more you give them answers, the more they just want answers. They don't want to learn why it happens that way. And so in our program, we want to make sure we're doing a really good job of our kids learning and trying to figure out the problems themselves. And that's one thing at practice. Like I tell our coaches, get off the field. You could be there, but don't hover over them, because in the game, you're not going to be out there. And so it's just like life. I mean, my dad was a disciplinarian. You came home at 10:30 on Saturday night, and that was the only night you got to go to your girlfriends, and you didn't go out and cruise around or sit in the parking lot. And if you were at 10:31, you can forget going next week. And that was the standard. It wasn't a rule. It was a standard. And so I think the more we get our kids to understand why the standard is that, and the level of how it'll help, because certain times when you go through certain things in life that are uncomfortable, they're not a joy to do. But then, when you get to be, like I told our kids in a meeting yesterday, I was like, look, most coaches in this room would say, hey, if I could go back and know what I know now and get to play again, I'd do it again. We're trying to teach you that you don't have to use that, later on in life. And so I think that's what we're trying to do.
Yes, sir, absolutely. I'm 38 now. I almost seek adversity, because I look back and I'm like, when I had that issue, look how I grew from that. When I had this going on negative in my life, look how much that helped me. So it's like now, if I know I've got adversity, that means I'm still growing. I'm still trying to improve. But as a young kid, you look at adversity and you kind of get scared or want to run from it. But I just think the only way you truly can grow and become better is from adversity or struggle.
Well, most people, when they hear trials and tribulations, boy, they just want to turn themselves off and run away from it. But look, we're either coming out of a battle, going in a battle, or we're in a battle right now. So one of those three things is going to happen to you today. And I think if we prepare ourselves, and the thing about it is I don't ever know what every day is going to bring, but I know this: when I'm at my weakest, God's at his strongest. And I know when I wake up every day to know that my Bible tells me that through these trials and tribulations produces perseverance. And that perseverance, gives me that love and that faith that I got to grow with every day, because I'm going to have a chance to impact somebody today with my testimony. And it's not about the great things that happen, but it's about the things that go on in my life that maybe weren't the great things, that people want to see how you're going to react, how you're going to handle it. And that's your testimony. Testimony, part of that word is test. And Coach Stallings used to tell us at the University of Alabama on Friday night, she's like, look, Saturday's a test. Don't ever fear a test, because a test tells you what you do know, and it also tells you what you don't know. And I'd much rather know what I don't know so I can fix it than always knowing what I do know.
I love that. And I just need to say right now that I even in all your podcasts on the Chasing Best, please everyone tune into that. It's a great series so far. I love that from every single episode I've heard you mention your faith. And to me, in the world we live in today, from when I was a child, it's changed drastically. And I commend you for stepping up and being proud of your faith. I do the same thing as well, and I think that anyone that has a voice needs to use it. I think too often that we are silent in what we believe in, and I feel like there's too much negative in the world, but there's so much more good in the world than negative, but the negative is so loud and people are scared to just stand up for what they believe in. And obviously, I can tell that in you that same thing for me. It really is my foundation. Without knowing, that God is so good, I wouldn't be the man I am today. I wouldn't have the confidence or the blessings that I have in my life today. And I can see it in you as well. So I just want to commend you on proclaiming your faith and being so firm and voicing it.
Well, I think the biggest thing for all of us is if you're a faith-based person, it's not about you shoving something down somebody's throat, and it's not about people always having to hear about this, that, and the other. It's about living your life in a manner that's pleasing, that glorifies God, and then others want to be like, you know what? There's something different about him. Yes. God's got his hand on him. And it doesn't mean that everything you touch turns to gold. It doesn't mean that every day's the greatest day. But it does mean that your testimony is so strong that no matter what you go through, that you still have an opportunity to impact people's lives. And I think people in life today, in our society, they can say whatever they want. But people want to be wanted and people want to be needed, and they want to be respected. And I think those three things are highly important when you're growing your faith, because most people respect the fact that you have faith. Most people want sort of what you got. And then everybody needs what you got. And so when you have that faith and you have those three things, then it creates a relationship, and then it's their decision of what they want to do and how they want to live their life, but you get to impact them because now all of a sudden through your faith, you've opened the door to where you can create a relationship. And I think that's what my podcast has wanted to be about. It's a self-help podcast. It's about growing and trying to help you to grow, but it's also an opportunity not for people just to see me, but to people to see life from a different view. Like I told you, leaders have a different vision. If I can give somebody a different focus every day, instead of focusing on all your problems, focusing on what's going to happen to you, but no, it's focus on things, what's going to happen for you. Because waking up every day is not a have-to moment, it's a get-to moment. And how we ever approach that is what we're going to become that day.
Yes, sir. And just having the humility to me, having faith is just having the humility to acknowledge that I can't do it alone. I need help. I don't have all the answers. I don't know all the truths. I believe in a higher power because I believe that he's guiding me and leading me. I need help. And everyone has a God. Whether it's cars or money or girls or whatever, everyone has something that is their God. I just love that believing in the higher power and is leading me.
Well, I think we all deal with that. Everybody.
It's tough.
Everybody has something they're dealing with, whether it's things that people are on the computer looking at, or it's drugs, it's alcohol. It could be just anything from greed. It can be money. It can be, hey, I want to have all the nicest things in the world. It could be, hey, I don't treat people the right way. I need to work on that. There's a lot of different things that people deal with, and everybody has something. But everybody needs to understand, that's not something that's supposed to tear you down. That's something that's supposed to make you better because it's your testimony. And that's what you grow from. I remember last year we're playing North Forsyth, and this is a football story, but things are not going really good. We're playing in a region championship. We're undefeated, and we're playing at City Park, but we're not playing really good in the first half, and they're up, and it's not looking good. And so when we went in at halftime, I think the kids were waiting on me to maybe chew them out or get them going. And when I pulled them all together before we went out for the second half, I said, you know what? Hey, we're right where we need to be. Let me tell you why, because the story's going to be even better when you come back and win this thing. And so the bounce back sometimes is always greater than the setback. But are you willing to get up and bounce back? And so I think that's the key to living life to the fullest. That's the key to living life at a high standard, and that's the key to living life at a high standard so I can impact other people.
Can you tell us a little bit about, Coach, about your childhood upbringing, where you played ball at, et cetera?
Well, I grew up, my dad was a high school football coach, so I grew up in the gym. I was a gym rat, and so me and my brother's 2.5 years older than me, and he's on my staff at Gainesville. So we got up in the morning, went to work with my dad, and when there wasn't grass to be cut, or weed eating or painting or anything that needed to be done at the school, then we were just, hey, it didn't matter. We didn't have to have a ball. We could find something to do. And so I think that's why my brother and I are so close. So my dad was a very successful high school football coach in the state of Alabama. I went to a little private school in Demopolis, Alabama, my junior, senior year. So I graduated from there. I loved football. I played all three sports. And so, I had an opportunity to get drafted out of high school in baseball. But I chose to go play college football at Southern Miss. And so I signed a scholarship there. After 1 year there, playing there, I transferred to the University of Alabama and ended up being there for 4 years, played there, was academic all-Southeastern Conference 3 times, and then, had some opportunities. And, I tell people all the time, my senior year, my first play against Georgia, at Georgia, I had to pick up Kirby on a safety blitz and had to block him. So I tell people all the time it's kind of a neat story. But Kirby and I've always had a good relationship, and I knew him when he was at the University of Alabama. And so, I grew up playing ball, my whole life. My mom and dad, I lived at home with 2 wonderful parents, and, we're the spiritual side of who we were as a family was something we didn't hide. But there was a standard. There was a standard of love that was given from my mom, and there was a standard of sternness that was given from my dad. And they knew how to complement each other. But I am what I am today based off of what my parents have done and raised me. And, I was a leader growing up. I wanted to be a leader. I remember my senior year, my dad was our head coach, and he didn't handle the team meetings. I handled them. I told him, look, I got it. I'll handle all that. And I just knew growing up, I've always been that guy that could put everybody here or put everybody there and say, hey, this is the way we're going to do it, and didn't have a problem with that. And so went to University of Alabama, played there for 4 years. I redshirted 1 year. And then when I got out, I thought I wanted to be a college football coach. And so I coached at Jacksonville State for 3 years, and, some unpredictable situations happened. Our head coach resigned after the 4th game of the year, my last year there. And so I didn't know what I was going to do. I'd just been married for a year and a half. We had our first boy, and, so here we are. I'm like, got to go home and tell my wife, who don't know a whole lot about coaching. I'm like, hey, look, we got 8 more games to coach, but we're going to have to find a job at the end of December. And so we just got on our knees and started praying about it. And, I was a guy that was the head strength coach, coached running backs, and then the head of all team travel. So if anything was done, it went across my desk. And so I had a lot going on, but at the same time, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, God, what am I doing? Am I going to keep coaching? Do I need to go into sales? What am I going to do? And, I interviewed for 3 jobs after the season was over with, 3 high school jobs in Alabama. Didn't hear anything for 2 weeks. My wife and I were driving home from an Alpha insurance party that she was like a secretary of CSR there. And then we were just like, look, can we just get a sign, just something, just to let us know what we need to do? And, this is like December the 12th or 14th, so we got 12 days. And next morning, 10:30, I remember my wife's at work, and I'm feeding Shaw, my oldest boy now, I'm feeding him a bottle, and the phone rings within 30 minutes, and 2 of those opportunities that I interviewed for were interested. And so by that night, I'm in a coat and tie meeting with the superintendent, got my first head coaching job in the year of 2000. And look, man, that's all I've known is being a head football coach, and I've been fortunate and blessed to be able to do it. And so I've been around a lot of great players, a lot of great coaches, and a lot of great support staff and administrators that have given me a great opportunity.
That's excellent. Who would you say is your most influential coach that you had? Was it Coach Stallings at Bama, or?
Well, I'm of course, my dad.
Your dad.
Probably just, my dad was innovative from a schematic standpoint in the 70s before anybody was. He was running 4 wide. He was running 12 personnel, which the only reason people ran 12 personnel is to, run dive, or, he ran it to throw the football around. And so he was really before his time. And I think that's why he got to coach for so many years, because, you can coach and then the game kind of pass you by a little bit because schemes change and things like that. But for him, he was so innovative in the 70s that once he got into the 90s coaching me, we were running the run and shoot on offense. And, he coached all the way through up to the early 2000s. And so And I take stuff from everybody. I don't have just one person. I mean, there's guys now like Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay. I mean, there's certain things those guys do from a cultural standpoint, from a schematic standpoint. I mean, there's things that Nick Saban does. I mean, that there's things that Kirby does from a practice perspective. I don't think you put all your eggs in one basket with one person. I think the key is not being, I guess you could say you got to be willing to change. If you want to stay on top of your game, you got to change your game a little bit. And so I'm constantly trying to learn from everybody I can. But my dad definitely was the cornerstone of my coaching career, why I wanted to be a coach.
That's excellent. And if you, a testament to that, if you take one person as your model, then you're really not being your true best self of you, because the take a little bit from everybody to make your own best version of yourself based on just.
Well, you got to be willing to be influenced and impacted by people on a day-to-day basis. Like, you can't sit here and go, hey, because then what happens if that person's not even doing that anymore? And that influence changes. Does that impact change? I mean, and for me, if somebody's doing it the right way, because winners follow winners. Bottom line is that winners follow winners. Yep. I mean, that, and the thing is, winners have a system. Losers and winners, like both of them want to win. I mean, I don't think people realize that. Like, losers don't wake up in the morning and go, hey, you know what? I think I want to lose today. No. I mean, and losers have goals, but winners have systems. And so that's why I like to follow winners. And look, it can change from year to year. All right. But I think within that point, like, what can you get from them? I mean, like, if it's a schematic standpoint, I have a notebook that sits by my recliner. So when I'm watching games, if there's something that I see that could fit what we're doing, I'm going to write it down. If there's something I can listen to on a podcast, I think it can help us and help me, I'm going to write it down. I think you got to be willing to learn. And I think that's been the thing for me. Like, if somebody said, why have you had an opportunity to be successful? Number one, God's blessed me tremendously. To him be the glory. But number two is, I am very willing to learn every day. I'm not a guy that thinks he has all the answers. And so if there's something we need to tweak, my coaches will tell you. We may come in next week and Tuesday practice may not look the same as the Tuesday practice before on the practice schedule, because, hey, there's something we need to do to get better, and I'm not scared to make that adjustment.
Yes, sir. Can you speak on your first state title? Well, that was for a 3A school?
Yep, it sure was.
And just tell me the differences from your standpoint of a 3A school versus a 6A school. Was Hoover at 6A at that time?
We were 7A.
7A?
Yep. And so I think the biggest thing was when I went to Aniana High School, there was a program that had went 3-7 and 1-9 the 2 years before I got there. All right. And so you hire a guy that has no head coaching experience. All right. And so Keith Bender took a chance on me. And so I think the biggest thing is going in there, having a driven of saying, hey, this is the way we're going to do it. It's a little bit different now because, all these guys that are playing football are playing basketball and baseball. And so you're trying to have a little bit of an off-season program so you can kind of get your footprint in there a little bit. And that first year we went 5-6, probably had no reason to be in the playoffs, and we got killed in the first round, all right, but we made it to the playoffs. The second year we went 7-3, got beat in the first round again. Third year we go 11-2, and we get beat in the quarters. And then fourth year we went 13-2, made it to the finals, got beat. And then my last year there we went 15-0 and won it all. And so, one year we played for it, one year we won it. Then I got an opportunity. I went to Oxford High School. I was there for 3 years, and then the Hoover job came open. And, everybody knows about Hoover. Some people know Hoover because of Two-A-Days show, but everybody in Alabama knows Hoover or in the Southeast because of the success they've had in their football program. And so got that opportunity within 14 years. I mean, we played for it 9 times, and we won it 6. And so 2 of those that we played for, we lost by 1 point. So, we should have won 2 more. And the difference is depth. I mean, it's just the amount of kids where you got 46 kids, playing at Aniana. At Hoover, I mean, I've got 125 to 130 that's just 10 through 12. Ninth grade has their own team. You had a 7th and 8th grade, 7th grade team and 8th grade team at 2 different middle schools that feed into your program. And so, depth, you had a lot more depth. And so, when I was at Aniana, I mean, 7 of our guys played both ways. And so you're on pins and needles about staying healthy. And, when I came here, I think that's the biggest thing is we're still trying to grow our numbers and grow our depth. We've gone from like 70 players last year to close to 100 this year. And then, you try to make sure that you're developing everybody. I'm a guy that likes to two platoon, so I like to have guys that play offense and guys that play defense, because I think there's more versatility as far as what you can do on offense and defense when those guys are spending the time. But now we're at a point in time in our practice schedules now where we have what we call trade periods. And so the big thing now is like trading those, 10 to 12 guys over to the other side of the ball. So if we get to a point where we got to have them from a depth perspective, we can use them. But I think that's the biggest difference between 7A, 6A football and smaller football. I mean, the football is pure. Football is football. I mean, it boils down to blocking and tackling and execution. But I think when you start talking about a number standpoint, that there's a lot more planning that has to go into your numbers than it does to go into just, hey, this is what we got to do to win on Fridays.
Excellent. We were talking a little bit earlier about the Steelers game last night, and you said you had coached George Pickens.
Yep.
I know you coached a lot of great kids. Who are some other notable ones that the viewers may know?
Well, Marlon Humphrey's another one that's, for the Ravens, been a 3-time Pro Bowler, defensive back. I've got a few guys right now that are on some practice squads that Shedrick Jackson's one of them. Jeremiah Moon's another one. So I've been very fortunate to be able to coach some really, really good players. And I think that's a neat thing when you can cut the TV on. And, I mean, you know how they do the starting lineup. Well, last year, George, instead of saying Georgia, which might make some Bulldog fans upset, but he said Hoover High School. And so I was pretty excited about that myself.
That's cool.
So it's been fun, man. It's been fun. And we'll have some, I'm excited about some kids we got coming through our program here. And with some opportunities, some younger kids. And, you don't ever know, as far as NFL goes. It's a need and a want basis there. And so there's guys that are playing right now that didn't go to the combine. There's guys that didn't get drafted, but there's a need within that team. If you get to the right team, you can have opportunities. But I've been fortunate to be able to coach some guys that's played in the NFL, and it's kind of neat to watch them play.
It really is. When I was watching the game last night, when I see Deshaun Watson, I think of Gainesville High School.
Yep.
That's the first thing I think of every time I see him, and how we allowed him to slip out of the state of Georgia and go to Clemson. What a phenomenal career he has had as well. But when I think of Gainesville, I think of Deshaun as well. So Gainesville's had some really good athletes come to that school as well.
They have, and there's some guys that are playing in college right now that I think are going to have some opportunities. From a D-line, O-line perspective, and so I think there's some guys there. And then, and like we said before, when you sit here and you go, hey, project this guy, he's going to be an NFL player, it's hard to do that. There's guys that have the size to play in NFL, but then they may not have the same want to do that. Right. And then you got guys that are sort of in that range, but, hey, this guy's got it, and – there'll be other guys that will come through this program that are going to get a chance to go play at a high level, and so we're excited about that.
That's excellent. It was very disheartening. I was actually at the Georgia-Tennessee game back when Chubb had his injury last night. Seeing that injury last night was disheartening, because definitely to me one of the best running backs in the NFL. That was tough to watch.
Well, he's one of those guys too now where you can feed him and he just doesn't get tired. Mm-mm. He doesn't get tired. And the thing that's about him is not only is he a good player, man, but he's a good person, a really good person. He's a great locker room guy. He's the leader. He's the guy that everybody can hang their hat on because he's so consistent. He's always been consistent, and no matter what he's been through in his career. So my prayers go up to him and their family and that organization. And like I said, I hope he makes an awesome recovery from it.
Me as well. My son is at North Oconee last year, played football, and we had to go to Cedartown in the Final Four, and we didn't win that game. But just when going to that stadium, you can just feel Nick Chubb's presence there. It was really powerful just to see the impact that he's left at that school. So yeah, much prayers going out to him there. I also read that you have some athletes in the family. Your children are athletic as well. You speak on them for a minute?
Yeah. So my oldest boy plays at Cumberland University in Lebanon, Tennessee. And so plays wide receiver there. He's in his 6th year. So he's graduated, working on his MBA right now. He's had 2 ACL surgeries within the last 2.5 years. So, him trying to play through that, I've got a lot of respect for him because he wants to have, his last year. So I'm excited for him. He wants to go into coaching. So, we're hoping that, I'd love to try to get him back here with me, teaching math or, doing something like that. My daughter, she was a fast pitch softball. She played JUCO softball at Wallace of Hanceville. Very fortunate there. She's a really, really good player. Then when she finished playing there last spring before last, then she's kind of decided she wants to go into the elementary teaching mode. So she goes to Jacksonville State University where, she's studying to be an elementary school teacher. And then my youngest boy, Sky, plays for me. And so, he plays our hybrid, tight end guy. He's a really good player for us. He's kind of our X factor, and I've been proud of him. But I'm proud of all my kids. And I'm not just proud because they're athletes, but I'm proud of them because of the way they carry themselves, the business-like attitude they have. They love their family. We're all attached to each other. We love being around each other. My wife and I just went and watched Shaw play this past weekend and kind of hung out with him for a while. And then, you get back and Harper will come home and hang out for a while. And then, of course, you got Sky that, eats us out of our house and home. And but it's kind of bittersweet because, when Shaw was going through the program, I knew I had one more coming later. This is it. We're trying to enjoy every moment, like every practice. I'm trying to enjoy every opportunity I can with him. And so hopefully he'll get an opportunity to go play college ball. And me and my wife talked about it. She goes, man, it's going to be so neat. We get to go watch Sky now play college ball for 4 or 5 years. And so I was like, yep, and we can't take that for granted either. So I've been very fortunate. I mean, I got an awesome wife. I mean, I outpunted my coverage, and she's definitely, they got all their looks from her. And, I think athleticism, I think I'm still in there on that a little bit. So, but no, I've been blessed, man. My wife is awesome and does an awesome job with our children. And, we just try to, look, sports has just always been a vehicle for our family and a connection and a shared experience. And I've just been fortunate and blessed to have my children get a chance to play at a high level.
Just accumulating those memories because, as we all know, the three of us in here today, time goes by way too fast. So however we can get some memories with our family and keep everyone.
Well, I always tell everybody, when you have children, the days are long, but the years are short.
That's it.
And I remember the first time somebody told me that, I thought, wow, boy, that just sums it up right there. And so, I miss those, 8-year softball, when Harper was playing and nobody could throw a strike. I miss some of those days, and now, I just tell parents out there right now, if you got young children, like, you better enjoy them. Enjoy every minute, and don't just make it about the sport, but make it about the experience that they get to have with you within the sport. And I think that's what makes the difference. I mean, like Adam and I talk about this all the time, like, with his daughter playing volleyball, and they make a lot of trips. And, like, that's what he talks about. Like, he doesn't talk about going to the camp. He doesn't talk about, hey, going and playing in this showcase. He talks about, like, and she's really good, and they talk about the experience, like just getting to hang out, ride in the truck together, to go to all these trips. And he looks forward to it. He looks forward to it every week, and you can just see it in his voice when he's talking that, he's excited about, hey, we're going to get to talk, hang out together. And I think that's what it's all about. And sports is just one of those vehicles that I think gives you a unique way of having a shared experience with your children.
It definitely. I even fell accustomed to that. I was too focused on the win or the loss versus other things when he was younger, and then I had to recalibrate myself. A man that is humble enough to recalibrate himself, I think, is important because it's not about that. It's about just the moments and the memories and those shared experiences.
Well, and now don't get me wrong. Now in the Niblett household, like, we want to win.
We want to win.
We didn't play a lot of upward basketball. We played where there was a scoreboard. But that was the way our family was. But there was a respect and an understanding to understand that when you do compete, this is what you compete at and the standard you compete at. This is how you carry yourself. If you win, hey, you better have a lot of respect for your teammates. You better have a lot of respect for the people you played against in humility. And when you lose, then you better have a lot of discipline about, hey, I don't point fingers. I'm going to point my thumb back at me, and I'm going to be the best teammate I can be. And you know what? The other part is not the winning and losing now. Like, right. It's the playing time. It's the stats. Yeah, right. That's the part, that's the issue that I don't think as parents we're teaching our kids very much value, because now we don't even care if they win and lose. We just want to make sure they get touches. We make sure they get at bats. We want to make sure they get to pitch. We want to make sure they get to do this. And all we're teaching our kids is, hey, look, hey, just be selfish, and that's what I don't agree with. So, that's the one thing with my children. I never had conferences with coaches, I didn't even sit in the bleachers with them. I stood outside because I didn't want to be a distraction to my to my children. And look, I always tell them, you figure it out. You figure it out. You want to play more, then make them have to play you more, But the bottom line is you better be a great teammate and you better impact us to have an opportunity to win. And so I think that's the way we all need to approach it.
I love that. I love it. So I saw you pull up today, Coach, in a good-looking Avalanche gray Akins Ford F-150 Covert Edition. Look, standing tall, looking great. Have you had a truck in the past? Is this your?
I have had a truck in the past, but not that truck.
Got you. Tell me something that you've enjoyed about the truck so far.
Look, just number one, there's a lot of features on that truck that, I don't even know if I've even got to tap into many of them. But, I think there's so many opportunities within that truck. It's the automated running boards on the side, when the door opens. Look, that's unbelievable. The first time I, had the truck and I went to unlock it, I was trying to hit it on the key. Heck, my hand just got to the handle and unlocked himself. I'm like, what is this, And then the other night, my wife, we're at the football game at my son's game. She's like, where are you going to carry all those bulky keys at? I'm not. She goes, hey, you going to leave them in the truck? I said, yep, watch this. I'm going to lock my truck on my phone. Yeah. Now, I was a little nervous about coming back, like my phone being dead and I couldn't get in there.
Right.
But that was unbelievable. And then when you get in the truck, the screen is the first thing everybody sees. They're like, good night. This is like a 30-inch flat screen in here. All that's awesome. But I think the comfortability of how big the truck is on the inside, I think that's something too, and how good it rides, and then, of course, my wife, when it gets winter, the heated seats are going to be unbelievable for her. But nothing has been sacrificed in that truck to the point of being like, hey, look, this is what's going to allow the customer, the person that drives in that truck, to drive and be comfortable and be able to drive, and be focused on driving and then enjoy the experience. And I have definitely enjoyed the experience, and it's been unbelievable.
Absolutely. So in the early 2000s, Ford's great about listening to consumers. They get feedback on every vehicle lineup and say, listen to us, what do you like or do not like? And then they tweak. So they made the bed a little bit shorter than the other brands to give you a little more cab space. So you've got more leg room in the second row, and it's perfect to me.
I think the neat thing you and I were talking about with the Covert package is this. Everybody's looking for something a little bit different. Like my wife the other day, she flips up the electrical, and it's got a plug in. Like you can plug the actual plug in. She's like, oh my gosh, what is this? Well, that would be something we would definitely want, to have, if it's not standard. You know what I'm saying? Like there's certain things that everybody wants that might be a little bit different. My taste might be a little bit different than somebody else's. There might be a feature on the inside I want or a feature on the outside I want that somebody else doesn't want. And to have that opportunity, to have that, to be able to know, I think's unbelievable.
Yes, great. The truck of all trucks, I really think it meets the needs of everyone. We have a lot of women that purchase a truck now because it meets the need. My wife drives a truck now. It meets the needs of everyone. It takes care of everything. You want to haul the dogs in the back or whatever you need to do, it can be handled in a truck. So we're proud to have you in a F-150. And we were talking, AD and I were talking earlier, and we were like, hey man, maybe later or next rendition we can do a red elephant Covert edition, like maybe a black or a white with a little bit of
no doubt,
a little bit of red here, a little bit of subtleties to make it pop. That would be really cool. So we look forward to everything now and in the future with you. I remember the Georgia G on the side of the helmet, and I haven't kept up with Gainesville. Did you change the helmet?
We still have the G on our white helmet. Okay. So we have a G on the white helmet on one side, and then we have their number on the other side.
But the other helmet I've seen recently with the G,
we have a red with the elephant coming through it.
That goes hard. That looks so.
That's Adam's baby. So he loves that helmet. So he designed that helmet, and that was something that when I first got here, it was a kind of a surprise. And he's like, "Hey, let me show you something." And so Yeah, when we unveiled that that's our legacy helmet. So
Okay.
there was a time to when red helmets were worn at Gainesville.
Okay.
And so we love to be able to give back a little bit to even, those groups that played way before us or have a legacy. And so that's our legacy helmet that we'll wear. And we still wear the white one too. But I think that's the neatest thing too. Like people talk about all the time, like we have tradition. There's times where you want to tap back into other stuff, but I think tradition's a lot about your standard. It's when everybody shows up, what are they going to see? Like what are they going to see? And like for us, I think it's kind of been neat how we've been able to tap into some other things from a perspective, whether it be a uniform or a helmet or, hey, a sign on the wall or, other things. And I think that's important because, kids love that. They love the swag. I mean, they love the opportunity to have something a little bit different. I mean, if you'd have come this past week, we did a color rush, so it was red out. And so our kids were red helmets, red jersey, red pants, red socks, red shoes. And so that's big for me, where a lot of coaches may not be high on their priority list, but I'm going to take care of our players because I'm a big, firm believer that we're going to ask a lot out of them, and we ask a lot of time out of them. And there's certain people out there that think I probably do too much, but I don't ever do because too much is given, much is required. Yes. And so for me, it's my job to make sure they got everything they can have to be successful. And so we're going to continue to do that.
And you're going to be, I love that thought process there. You're going to be around for a long time, but for those kids, it's only 4 years of their life. So if they can have that extra little memory of that Friday night where they got to wear the cool jerseys, that goes.
Well, I think that's the thing you got to remember is there's a lot of those kids that are in that team meeting room this afternoon when we meet that won't go play college ball. And there are some that will. So there's two trains of thought there. The one that's not, he got to experience it because we're going to give him the closest thing to college as he could get from the experience, whether it be, hey, how we train in the weight room to how we practice, the apparel that we wear, to feeding our kids before they go home, every day, to study hall, to meetings, to the environment that you're going to get at City Park, and then the guy that is going to go play at whatever level, we've already got him ready to go in condition, understand that, hey, look, it ain't going to be much tougher than this. It ain't going to be much, greater than this. I mean, like, that's what we want. I mean, and I think that's a vision that all of us have within the building that, hey, we're going to give our athletes at whatever sport they play the highest level of, hey, look, we're going to make sure they get what they need to be successful. And we want to make sure they have the greatest experience you could possibly have as a high school athlete.
I love that. What do you see in that same token? Do you see more competition? This is a hard question. Do you see more competition between schools trying to do the same thing in Georgia versus Alabama? Like, there's a lot of great programs in the state of Georgia football wise. Do you see Alabama being just as many in Alabama, or?
I think the numbers are different in Georgia. I think if you go to the state of Alabama and you watch the top echelon of football, as far as let's just say football or programs that are successful, and then you come to Georgia, there's more.
Right.
If you go to Gwinnett County, you got all these 7As just on top of each other. And they all have great players. They all have really, really good athletes. They all have really good coaches. And so they're going to play at a high level. So to have that much high level play in one, spot, that's kind of what you're looking at. There's just more. I think there's just more athletes, more football players. I think there's more football teams that play at a high level. And there's some really good football in Alabama.
Sure.
But I think every year. The thing is, in Alabama, every year you can pretty much predict, the top 6 and 7A that are probably going to make it every year. Whereas here, there's going to be 2 or 3 that are going to show up that you'll be like, man, where'd they come from?
I always say.
Well, that's like us last year. We were 5-5 the year before I got there. We didn't get to the playoffs. There's probably not a lot of people. They probably thought, man, they'll improve. But I bet if you'd have taken a bet on how many people thought that we were going to make it to the finals and then lose by 1 score, then nobody would have. I think that's the thing about it is everything here. Everybody I think the key in Georgia is you got to be consistent. And that's what we talk about. Like, you'll see certain teams be here one year and the next year they're down. 2 years later, they're back up. We don't want our program predicated just off of, hey, this player, that player, this player. We want it predicated off, hey, here's our culture. All right, and I think that's the one thing we did at Hoover when, we played for it out of the 14 years I was there. We made it to the semifinals every year, and we played for it 9 out of 14 years. And look, players every year, you're going to have maybe a little bit better player one year, and then next year you might have an even better player, and then next year there may just be really good football players. And I think the key is you got to have, like, we have a sign in our hallway that says tradition never graduates. And so, it's got to be your culture. It's got to be what you believe in. And then you got to be willing to understand how you tweak it versus the personnel that you have from year to year to allow yourself to stay on top and to keep, kind of going up. That's what we want to do. And it's not just as a football program, but it's in every facet of what we do within our athletic program.
Speaking of talent in Georgia, it's the same way for baseball. When I see that big red wall for baseball at Gainesville, I'm just like, baseball is a definite core sport at Gainesville.
Well, I think basketball is becoming that way too. Well. I do. I think girls. I think volleyball is becoming that way also. I think it's becoming a high sport to the point of where you got to be playing at a high level to give yourself an opportunity to compete every year. And so, I think that's good because I think you're gonna fight or flight. And that's the thing is for us in our program is we want to make sure we don't worry about everybody else. And I think that's one thing about Gainesville, like from when you step in that door in our athletic facility, one thing you'll notice about, you probably won't see anything in there about everybody else in Georgia. But I'm going to tell you, when you look at that Jumbotron in the hallway, it's all our highlights. And I think that's important because it's all about us, and people can say, well, that's selfish or that doesn't show a lot of humility. But when I wake up every day and I go to bed at night, I'm going to get what I earn. I ain't going to get what I deserve. I'm going to get what I earn. And so how can we every day make sure we handle what we can handle? And I think that's the key to our success in all of our programs.
You got to have that. You got to have that self-belief. You're not going to, nobody else is going to believe for you. You got to believe in yourself first and foremost. That's it. Tim, what's your thought process on multi-sport athletes in high school?
Yep, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I think number one is I think the thing that used to get people was, training kids. And I think the thing that I struggle with the most is, like, without even going to, like, multi-sport kids is, there's a lot of trainers out there, like kids going to trainers. And, the one thing in our program, like, you don't have to go to a trainer. You're going to get enough work of what you need because the expertise of what we have in our building from a mentor and a training standpoint, going to be second to none. And I just think kids now are just getting wore slap out. I think they feel like they got to stay above everybody else or have what everybody else has got. So if that's the standpoint, then I got to go train over here and go train over there. I got to play this all year round. And I think that's where I don't think it's the high school that we're having the issue. I think it's all the other that we're doing. So it's hard to play, travel baseball in the fall and play high school football. It's impossible. Yeah. I don't care what anybody says. It's just hard to do. But also at the same time, it's hard to play high school baseball and play travel in 7-on-7, in the spring. And then you got AAU basketball that's pretty much, year round. And so I think what we've done is instead of saying, hey, look, you remember when we were growing up, it was like, now you're a little younger than I am. But growing up, it's like, hey, football ended. All right. Hey, where's the basketball? You go shoot it around a little bit, have a couple practices. It's time to start basketball season. Yep. Then when you got beat out in the playoffs, or if you won it all, then you know what? Hey, grab your glove. No. Spring training in football for 2 weeks. And then when that was done, grab the baseball, let's go hit a little bit, and then all of a sudden you play baseball. And then in the summer, you had an opportunity to excel at all of them, because nobody was fighting for time. You didn't do anything on Sundays. Like you want to go play travel baseball, you might, but it was called Sally League. It was called, so you were playing like in a league. There was no football 7-on-7 or any of that. All right. And then if you want to play basketball, hey, but you just call people up and go play pickup basketball. It's some of the best basketball I've ever played.
Absolutely.
But I think now we're trying to have everything on social media. Everything's about stars. Everything's about being recruited. And it's about getting likes and, and being seen and doing all those things. And I think to the most part, it's hurt a little bit of the purity of the game because now everybody just wants to play games. Like, they don't want to practice. They don't want to work on their skill. And so for us in our program, like, we want multi-sport kids. We want kids that can play all of them. And I think the way we try to train our kids in the weight room is we're training to be better athletes. We're not training our guys to be better football players. I mean, we're training to be better athletes. We want to be the fastest team in the country. We want to be the strongest team, but we want to be able to use those things that are transferable to the field. And so I think it's highly important. But, yeah, I mean, I love multi-sport guys. I was a multi-sport guy, and I think that was a big part of my success.
Me too. And it goes back to the memory accumulation. If you're only playing one sport, you got a better chance of, I guess, maybe the burnout factor or just not getting the memories of being out there on the baseball field or playing basketball. There's so many good times you can accumulate just playing multi-sport.
Well, I think your emotions can only take so much too. I don't think it's just as much physically, but now I think parents have gotten so involved and put so much pressure on their kids to excel and to perform that they keep getting them in more involved in this and then. Well, let's go do this, let's go do that, because they're searching for success. And when you do that, it's hard for them to be your children anymore. Now you're their agent. Now you're just trying to get them other opportunities. Whereas parents, like I tell our parents and I tell the dads all the time, like, look, when your son comes home, don't ask him how practice went, because he's going to give you the same answer every time. It's okay. And then you're going to ask, hey, what's okay? Because you want to know, but just let him come home and go, hey, man, hope you had a good day today, but we can't stand it.
Right.
I mean, we cannot stand it. And the thing is, we didn't want them asking us, when we were growing up, how practice was, and so I think we just got to all understand that, look, I mean, kids need to be kids. And and if they want to get involved in sports, then you give them every opportunity to be. But at the same time, don't wear them out. When they come home, let them be kids. Because here's the thing. I always tell people this. If your child doesn't enjoy coming home, then when they leave, they'll never come home.
Right.
And I don't want that. I don't want that. And so for me, I've coached my kids. But everybody will tell you, when you come to practice, you wouldn't know that any of them were my kids, because that's just the way I grew up. And I don't believe in my kids getting certain things because I'm the coach. It was all about you going to work for what you do. My oldest boy, it took all the way up until, his senior year to get an opportunity to get on the field. Sky's a little bit different, but he's different because he's played for us as a freshman because he was good enough to play. And so I tried every way not to play him. Right. And, but I think that's why, I think it's highly important if you're a father or mother, because I have a conviction. This chasing best is all about men to me. It's all about trying to grow better men. That's how this started. I started my own foundation about 2 months ago. So I've got a foundation that, I want to try to grow men, whether it's conferences, whether it's going out and just helping support men to get opportunities to be reconnected to their families and stay connected, because that's where we're at, and that's where we are in our society today. And so if I can help in some way possible to help change families to where, the father is present in the son's life, and it not just be about sports, but be about, I want to grow him and I want to love him and I want to be there to support him, and then that's what we want to do. Absolutely.
There's too many consumers in the world today, not enough people that find pleasure in being giving or being able to give back to the community. That's right. That's great to see you doing that. It really is. I could imagine having multiple children. I see it in friends and families that we have. Time is of the essence, and as busy as you are and dedicated, when you have time, what do you do for fun, Coach? What is?
Well, most of my time's early in the morning. So like, if I'm going to get my run in and my workout, that's my deal. It's just run and work out. I get a little off time. Like yesterday afternoon, I had a little off time to go cut the grass and weed eat. I like doing my yard.
Yep. So I'm the same way. I'm not hiring somebody to cut my grass.
Not going to do it.
Me either.
And I don't even let my kids do it. Everybody's like, why don't you get your boys out there? I'm like, because I'm going to, I know how I want it done. And so that I'm just that kind of guy. I love the sun. So I know this sounds terrible, but I'd like to sit in a chair with my shirt off just getting sun. I just like being outside. I do. And, if it's grab a book, read it, listen to a podcast, but, working out. But I don't have a whole lot I'm not a hunter. I don't have any hobbies like that. I mean, and when I'm not, I'm just trying to spend time with my family, just hanging out at the house. And, you know, we got 2 dogs that I love, Buck, who's 10, and, you know, Gaines, who's a year and a half. And so, you know, love being around them and being around my family. And, you know, if I get an opportunity to, you know, just hang out, that's what I do if I'm not running or getting a workout in or something like that.
Yes, sir. I'm 38, approaching 40, so it's like we're still young. We're both in our prime, Coach.
Right.
I think we're still kicking it good, but it's like, you know, as you get older, all those things start to go through your mind. And I'm learning that sunlight's very good. First thing in the morning, get some natural sunlight.
No doubt.
Get out there.
Yep.
Have you tried cold shower or the cold plunge thing yet?
I have.
Don't you feel like $1,000,000 when you get out of that?
Yeah, the initial I don't, but yeah, I do. Yeah, but you know, I got a pool, so there's been a couple of times where you know, just thought about jumping in there, you know. But then the cold shower, yeah, that's a whole nother level now.
It is.
Yeah, it gets you going, or
But it
get
works.
you,
It
or
works.
get up in the morning and do a few burpees. You know, I mean, that'll get you going too. You know, and so, you know, I like to do a little bit of that, and then get my run in, and you know, Adam's getting his cardio in the mornings early, and so, and I've always been a kind of a morning guy. And we're a morning program, so we practice, you know, like this morning. I mean, we're out there at 6:30 in the morning. We practice before school.
No after school practice?
No
I
after
like
school
that.
practice. We meet in the afternoons, and so we'll have study hall with our players, but we want to be able to get them out of there by 5:30 so they get home. We feed them dinner, and then they go home, and they have time to be a kid, they have time to be a student. They got homework, things like that. And plus, we feel like at the end of the day, by the end of the week, they're fresher. But I'll tell you one thing, when they leave us, they don't have a problem getting up in the mornings. You know, they don't have a problem knowing that, hey, the mornings where I'm going to do my best work. And I think that's when we do our best work. It's in the mornings. We get those endorphins going. And plus, they're there in the morning. We know they're there for school. We get them started off right with something positive, and then they got a chance to have more positive things happen throughout the day.
I was not a morning person growing up, but now I definitely am, and it sets the tone for the day. If you get up early, it's like, okay, I'm here. Here we go. We're getting started, and we're going to start off with something hard.
Well, think about how bad of days you've had when you didn't do that.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
And so I think that's highly important. So.
Yeah, just a good jump start
Yep.
from the get-go. As far as you working out, Coach, are you more of a full body workout guy, weights wise, or?
Well, I don't have a labrum in either shoulder, so you know, like I have to alter some of my stuff that I do. You know, I like to run. You know, I've gotten where I'm walking a little bit more too. So. You know, I try to make sure I walk an hour a day, and then 3 days a week I'm getting in cardio, and then Saturday's kind of my longer run. But when I'm in the weight room, you know, like I've been doing a lot of band work the last couple of days. I don't know if you remember old P90X.
Oh,
you know?
yeah. Tony Horton.
Yep. Jump back into that a little bit, about 2 or 3 weeks. Just wanted a little change up, and then
They'll kick your butt.
Yep, it will kick your butt. And so, you know, I do some dumbbells, things like that, and you know, I do legs, all that kind of stuff, and arms on Wednesday. Wednesday's arm day. I have a little burpee sequence I do in the middle of that, try to get a little bit more, burn more calories. So, you know, it's just, you know, I just try to, you know, do whatever I can to try to stay healthy and look right. You know, I want to be lean, you know, but I like to eat too now.
Me too.
I mean, so
we got to work out if we're going.
Saturday's my cheat day, and so I really cheat on Saturday big time. And so I sometimes Friday kind of gets Saturday going a little bit, and Sunday may cap it in. So depends on how you look at that 24 hours there.
You and I are a lot alike. I'm the same way, but a strong body's a strong mind. I feel like it just gives me.
Well, if I eat more, I just work out more. And so I feel like those two cancel each other out. And that's the way I've always looked at it. So
food is so good.
Yep, no doubt.
It is so
no
good.
doubt.
Yep. It's been an hour and 10 minutes already. We boom, boom. I think I don't have any more questions for you, Coach. I'm ready to strap it up. I mean, you've got me motivated. I'm ready. It's been a pleasure to have you here today, and we like to be around winners too. So, like, naturally, that's why you guys are here. So the partnership that we've got with you all, we look for it to be a long-lasting one, and I'm pumped to come watch a game.
So how did the podcast here get started?
So I've been in the automotive industry for 14 years now, and I always saw, because I'm kind of you talking about my age. When I was growing up, it was all old school ingrained in me, and there was no travel ball even at that point and stuff. So I feel like I'm on the fence because I'm young enough but old enough to see both sides of it. So I saw that where the world was going with social media and all that stuff, and I started selling vehicles for a living. And I was like, well, there's got to be a better way to do this. I've got this phone that's the greatest invention of all time, and why can't I start using this? So I started doing social media. And ended up taking over the internet department at that store, and really just kind of changed a lot of ways of doing business, the convenience aspect and getting information to people. So that's really been something I've been passionate about. I feel like in sales and marketing go hand in hand, but even more so marketing. You've got to be able to market as far as sporting go as well. But me playing sports has been instrumental in me as far as business. I look at everything I do here every day. It's like I'm playing a game. Like I approach what I do every day just like you do with your team and yourself. I think it's instrumental. It correlates directly. So one big team here, and I want to set the standard by backing up what I say. I say a lot, but I have to back it up because I'm vocal about it, and if I'm not doing what I say, then what am I even doing? You know. So the podcast thing came about of just me essentially wanting to do this. We have so many great people that we deal with that come through here on a daily basis. If I didn't have this in here, then it's just shame on me, because there's so much opportunity to sit down with our great customers. Amen. And just I mean, like, this has built me up as a man just to spend an hour with you today, you as well. So just getting the time here has been invaluable. I love and seek these type of things just because it builds me up. I love hearing the stories. I love just listening and taking in and learning. The podcast, please check out Chasing Best, y'all. Is the easiest way to view that on iTunes? Is that the easiest way? Yeah,
and you can just pull up. I mean, if you've got the podcast app, you can just pull it up on podcast app. You can pull it up on Apple, Spotify. It's on all of those. Yep. So if you just you got to type in, when you type in chasing instead of the I, it's got a 1.
It's a 1.
Yeah, it's a 1.
Because of want to know every day.
That's right.
Tell us about that real quick. Why I want to know every day?
Well, I think a lot of times we struggle with trying to see the end picture, and you got to know what you want at the end of the day, but it's where your feet are. And if I can't be 1-0, I can't be 2-0. You know, and so for me, it's all about waking up every day. You got to know what you got to do that day to win the day, to be 1-0. And it's one moment, one opportunity. It's one mission only you can, because I think one thing is like, you are your own person. I mean, but there's one message that only you can give. I mean, there's one mission only you can complete. You know, there's one life only you can live. And so one to me is highly important. And so I think what you do is you start stacking those ones up, and then let everybody else talk about the 5-0. But for you, I mean, I've always said this. I hadn't been coaching for 25 years. I've been coaching 1 year 25 times. And so I think it's highly important that you reset your focus, because a lot of times you get into the numbers and they start growing, and then you start thinking about the growth instead of figuring out, hey, this is what we got to do on a day-to-day basis to make sure we're 1-0 at the end of the day. And so I think that's why it's important to me. And if you come to our building and you look in our building, like if you look at Gainesville, I mean, it's in the end zones now. Like instead of the I, there's a 1. I mean, so 1 is really, really big, because we want to be 1 at the end of the year. I'm not going to sit here and say we don't want to be the best. All right, that's what chasing best is. And so there's a 1 in just about everything that we talk about. And there's a lot of meaning to that 1 besides just maybe what everybody else thinks.
Amen to that. And I feel like that the mentality today, I think, cross board is that me and you both can't go 1-0. It's like you can go 1-0 and I can too. And it's like a culture thing. Like I want to go 4-35-0 I want everybody in this building to go 1-0 today. Yep. And if we can do that, we really can stack some wins on top of each other, and then we really got something special. But it's not because you can win and I can win too. I think so. The culture at some point in this society today can be,
well, between you and I though, and like Adam's my best friend, so like we talk about this all the time too. But like your 1-0 and my 1-0 don't have to be the same thing.
They're right?
But your 1-0 and my 1-0 together, like we're going to create another 1-0.
Absolutely.
You know, and so I think that's kind of been the neatest thing about what we've done in our athletic program through his leadership is, you know, is everybody understanding, like, everybody's got a lane, all right? You're responsible for that lane, all right? And within that responsibility, if you don't take ownership in it, then, we lose that part of that 1-0. And so it's about everybody being 1-0 every day. And so when he walks in the building, all right, there's an expectation that he's going to work his 1-0. So that expectation on my floor is, hey, I better win my 1-0. All right, and then because the deal is, if you go 0-1, it ain't hard to see 0-1 now. All right, but everybody, just because somebody doesn't validate your 1-0 doesn't mean you weren't 1-0.
Right.
All right. But I promise you this, they'll validate that 0-1 in a heartbeat. It's kind of like the deep snapper, Yeah. Nobody knows the deep snapper until a bad snap. Don't anybody talk about the good snaps. And so in life, I think that's why it's all about being 1-0. Don't worry about 0-1.
Yeah.
And don't worry about people validating what you're doing. You know what you're supposed to do. All right, then go do it. And then when it's time to go to the next thing, then go to the next thing, be 1-0 on it. And so I think we just got to take it step by step. I think life's too short not to. And I think at the end of the day, the one thing I don't ever want to have is regret that I did not take every moment and try to make the most of it.
You say it all the time, Coach. How many seconds are in a day?
There's 86,400 seconds in a day. All right, time lost is time lost. What you say you're going to do tomorrow, you're not going to do because you could have done it today. But if I gave you $86,400 and I told you at the end of the day that it was all going to cancel out, would you spend it? And you would spend it on things that count. So you'd have something to show for it. Well, that's the way we need to spend every day is that 86,400 seconds we got. We just lost a bunch of it, all right? But I didn't lose it. I'm using mine, all right? And so I think that's what we have to do to hold each other accountable to.
And the greatest, yes, sir, the greatest blessing is that we all are individual and unique. And like you said, your 1-0 is not the same as mine and everyone else's. But if we can be comfortable enough of knowing who we are and what our goals and standards are, then we can be 1-0 every day.
Well, I'll leave you with this.
Yes, sir.
I'll leave you with this. Our program is all about being aligned. Aligned does not mean that everybody, all right, that everybody is exactly the same. Now, we spell aligned different than everybody else. We spell it A-L-L, all right? And then we spell it to where that's all in, all right? And so it doesn't matter. We don't want a bunch of arrows going in the direction to the right, and they're all the same size and all the same color. We want different sizes, different color, all right, that bring different things to the table, but we're all staying in the parameters of our standard, and we're all moving in the same direction. That's what you want. I mean, that's diversity, all right, and that's unity, and that's synergy, and that's things that we talk about in our program that I think make a big thing because everybody's different. Everybody brings something different to the table. It's my job to put all those pieces together to where they fit off each other and feed off each other and make each other better.
Excellent. I'm fired up, y'all. This has been great.
Well, I've enjoyed it, man. This has been awesome, and I appreciate you having us on. We take, our partnership with you guys very seriously, but the other thing is this, I think when you have opportunities to have shared experiences that people allow you an opportunity to have, then I think it's our responsibility to make sure that everybody gets that opportunity and makes the most of it. And so that's what we take pride in at Gainesville. And look, it's all about the red elephants to us, but not just that, but it's also about what kind of impact can we make on everyone. And we're not just talking about our city, we're talking about our state and our country. And I think that's something we want to continue to do.
Big things are already here at Gainesville High School, and big things are on the horizon as well. Look forward to keeping up with both of you all and just seeing the continued success. Thanks so much today.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Appreciate your ministry. Appreciate what you do here. Just appreciate all of it, just everything. You can tell when you walk in here, the expectation and the standard is second to none, and that's a feeling, and you don't just get that, going anywhere. And I think that's why, because you do it for the right reasons too.
I went to college. I didn't want to be in the car industry necessarily, just because I guess of the bad stories you've heard about car business, car people in general. But it was like I loved it, and it's what I wanted to do. So I wasn't going to let somebody else's thought process about what I wanted to do dictate me being in that industry. It was just so every person I dealt with, I had that in mind, knowing that all I can control is how you feel about me in the industry after you have done business with me. And that's what's kind of been my driving factor each time. And I truly love what I do, and Akins is the place to be.
Well, the neat thing about what you do too is you're like a coordinator, you get a chance to have an impact and put your footprint in your, own what's going on here, and it impacts everybody here. And so I think that's a neat deal, man. I think you got an awesome thing going, man. I pray you have continued success with everything you guys are doing here.
Yes, sir. So I look forward to just talking with you in the future, because winners want to be around winners.
No
so
doubt.
You can help build me up as the years go on.
Well, to God be the glory. Thanks for having us on, man, and God bless, and go Big Red.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.